And we're going live. Good afternoon. Welcome to another installment of MSP Webinars. I'm Steve Taylor, the host of MSP Webinars, and we've got a pretty interesting one here today. We've actually got the folks from Harmony PSA, and I would say that Harmony is really interesting in the fact that you guys don't have an MSP background with Harmony. You have a financial background with Harmony. So the way you built out the integrations with the accounting solutions and just the whole way that Harmony PSA functions for us as MSPs, it seems much more intuitive for us to manage our money. So I'd like to introduce you to Steve Duckworth. Steve, I don't know if you meant to turn off your camera, but it is off.
Yeah, yeah, I do. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and thanks for people who've joined. Just a little bit of background. We're a bootstrap business. We've been Data Logic, which was the original company, has been in business for 11 years. And as Steve said, our background is banking technology. We started Harmony as a project, 8 years ago. It took an awful long time because we had to earn the money to build it. So that's what me and bootstrap means. And we had a very long gestation period with some very good early adopter customers who really helped us. And we span Harmony off as an independent company just over a year ago now, and started marketing it more aggressively because we felt by then it was really ready for a wider market. What we're going to do today is cover off a quick overview of the software. I say quick, it'll take about an hour. And James Sponder, one of our product consultants, will take you through the software. On the purchase side, I need to get that out of the way. You'll see on our website in the FAQ, we have a minimum order size of 10 users. That's a little historic now because we're bootstrapped, we really couldn't afford loss-leading users. We had to make money on every account. This year we are lowering that to a 5-user account as the entry point. So, and the 5-user account is priced at $385 per month on an annual commitment basis. And then users over the first 5 cost $45. So that's our price point. Now, if you're ready, I'll hand it over to James and we'll show you the software.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Steve. And good evening, afternoon, morning, everyone, depending on where you are. I'm just going to share my screen to start us off to make sure this is all working. So just give me a second to do that. So yeah, my name's James. I'm a product consultant from Harmony. Steve's just told you about the journey that we've had. I joined the company about 3 years ago, and I've spent that time demoing to businesses, MSPs in particular, but also some other types of businesses all over the world. So we've got a really good idea now of what people want, what people do in different jurisdictions. And today, I'm just going to show you a basic run through of the system. And I say basic because the way I normally do these things is to really understand the customer that I'm speaking to and tailor the demonstration based on all those requirements that specific person has. Obviously, that's not practical for today. So what we're going to do is a bit of a general walkthrough, go through a few things, a few key areas, give you a feel for the system, and then we're going to have questions at the end and go into a bit more detail about any areas that people want to have a look at or ask about. And then if you want to go through the buying process and find out more, if your taste buds are tickled by what you see today, then we'll do a separate one-on-one demo and do it properly. And that's quite important because the way Harmony works is very, very flexible, certainly compared to what else is on the market. So setting it up one way and the way that I've got Harmony set up that I'm going to show you today might not necessarily be exactly how you would use the software. So that's a big strength of Harmony, the flexibility and the way that we can bill for things, the way that we manage projects, the way that we have tickets and different workflows and SLAs and all these things. Very, very flexible. The other side of that is it makes it a bit more difficult to demo. So hopefully you'll see something that you like and we can investigate further. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a little bit of an overview of the system, just to show you the different areas and the kind of scope of Harmony. The reason that I'm going to do that is because some of you might not have seen what a PSA is or know what a PSA is. Some of you will have used another system. If I just clarify that to start us off, it's a nice, easy starting point. And then we're going to look at we're going to look at 2 or 3 sort of main areas after that, and that's really dependent on time. So I don't want to take up too much time. I've already been warned not to waffle and go into too much detail before we have the questions. So we're going to sort of see how it goes. But one thing we're definitely going to look at is tickets and ticketing and asset management and the whole service desk piece. I want to have a look at projects as well. And I also want to look at the sales process and how that flows through the system. So Harmony it's one system. It's not lots of different pieces of software bolted together like you see out there. It's not separate modules that do different things that maybe talk to each other. It's one system with all these different functions within it. So I'm going to try to explain that as we go along. And we're going to look at those sort of three or four key areas. The sales process is the start of the process. So we're going to build a quote for someone and sell some new services to them. That's useful to see how that works, but that's your entry point into the system. So you're managing your opportunities and your leads, and finally, hopefully, you get someone to sign a contract, and that automatically turns into an agreement of some sort, and the billing comes out of the other end, and all the other things happen attached to that agreement or contract. So rather than telling you about how the whole system works, I'm going to start showing you some things in the system. So I've just logged in to Harmony. This is my home page. I have a series of dashboards across here, and we're just quickly going to talk through these. So this is my first one, my actions and events. This is where I can see my calendar. This will sync and link with your Outlook or Google Calendar. So this is different to other systems because it's got all kinds of different types of meetings in here. So this is where you would see here, you can see this little symbol here means this is linked to a ticket. So this is a ticket that's scheduled to me. This is a recurring ticket that's scheduled to me. This longer one here is a project. I might have opportunities from a sales point of view that are linked in here. I might have invoices that I'm chasing that are scheduled in here. I might have vacation, as you can see here. So all these different objects in Harmony can have a scheduled task or event or action associated with them. And again, that's different to a lot of other systems on the market. The ticket is an important part of what Harmony does, but it's not the central point. You don't need to have a ticket to do a lot of the things in here. Okay, so that's our first one, actions and events, nice and easy. I'm going to go through these other ones relatively quickly, and I'm going to do them in reverse order so I finish off on our process boards, because that's the main one I want to show you.
And real quick, James, does the calendar synchronize two-way or one-way with like Office 365 or anything like that?
Yeah, it's two-way. So in here, I would see meetings that I've put in Office 365, and these will also show in your Outlook and Google Calendar as well. So yes, two-way sync in there if you want to. Some people just use it as a one-way sync, so these just show in your Outlook calendar, but it is a two-way sync if you prefer. Good. So let's just go through our dashboards. So finance. So Steve mentioned actually at the beginning that one of the differences with Harmony is our sort of financial background. And I think this is a little bit different to other things on the market. And there are several ways that it's different, and I don't want to go into all of them now because it will take too long. But some key points there is normally with a PSA system, what you do is you raise invoices after you've done some work or after you've sold something to someone, an invoice gets raised and that gets sent over to your QuickBooks system or your financial system that you use. In Harmony, we do the balance sheet accounting, we do journals, and we can send the journals over to QuickBooks as an alternative. So there's many more options within Harmony because it's got quite a powerful accounting engine, certainly compared to other PSAs that are out there. We actually care about the figures. It's really slightly different way of setting it up. Several sort of graphs in here. I'm not going to go through them all. Just want to show you the customer comparison. So here I can see my top 10 and bottom 10 customers by revenue, margin, and profit. And if I click on one of those customers, it'll take me to their monthly profitability graph. So here I can see monthly how well I'm doing with this customer. This is based on all the different contracts and agreements that I have with them. All the figures are down here and all the details, and you can drill down into these into the journal level if you want to. So I get this automatically based on all these things I'm processing through the system. So really clear financials and profitability, a really cool feature within Harmony. Now, that's the finance side of things. Next area is the sales. So this is the other end of the process at the start. So in here, we've got all our pipeline management, managing leads, opportunities, campaigns. We can link Harmony to external sources. So new leads get added into the system when people make an inquiry, fill in a form on your website, for example. Harmony will pick that up and assign a new lead to one of your guys, or a sales team or whoever it is that deals with these new inquiries. So again, we're not going to go too much into this today, but this is all in here. Now, it's worth pointing out at this point that you don't have to use all these things that I'm showing you. Some of these things you're going to go, oh, there's absolutely no point for me using that. I don't do that at all. That's absolutely fine. You can skip these steps out, miss these steps out of the workflows. You can automate things. You can basically, for the sales, for example, you can miss out all the leads and opportunities and all this stuff and just start with quotes. And the quote is the thing that basically turns into the contract. So you're just starting with what you're actually going to sell to them. Okay. Next one very quickly. So I like to break Harmony down into three main areas. They aren't separate modules, but it's a nice way to think of them as such. So finance is one, sales is another, the other is operations, service delivery. And that's broken down into projects and service. So projects, here, this is just a list of all the projects that I'm assigned to, different what we call work items that I'm assigned to on projects. So work items are very, very similar to tickets. They're just tickets that you've planned out in advance as part of a project. In other systems, they're probably just still called tickets. In Harmony, we break them out because they behave slightly differently. So it makes it a bit more efficient and a bit easier to use. The other one for operations is service, and this is the one we're more interested in today. So here I'm looking at ticket statistics like SLA breach percentages I've got here. I'm not doing very well here. In fact, I'm doing absolutely awful because I've got nearly 100% breach percentage, apart from this week. I seem to have closed one down. That's just because I'm in a demo system here and I keep opening tickets and not closing them down. But a little bit about SLAs, really flexible SLA system. So you can have as many different SLAs as you want. Each SLA can have as many different severities or priorities as you like. Each priority can have different targets, like respond to the customer within 10 minutes and resolve the issue within 24 hours. And each target can have as many different escalation rules as you like. So, notify the support manager after 10 minutes before it breaches, so they can jump in and help, or whatever it may be. It's fully configurable by you. We'll give you a basic setup to get you started with an SLA in there, but really this is about you telling us what you want these rules to be, and we build these in the implementation. So there's a lot of stuff that's not kind of just set in the system. The first thing we do is ask you, how do you want to do this? How do you sell this? What are your SLA rules? What's this? What's this? And then in the implementation, we map that out with you, and then you maintain it ongoing. So that's a quick run through of our three different areas. The last one is the process boards, and this is the most interesting one. So in here, these are our Kanban style process boards. We'll start off with service desk. So in here, each one of these columns is basically a queue of tickets, which is a filtered list of tickets. I can build this and customize this however I like. This is just an example setup, but in here I've got new tickets that are coming in waiting to be triaged. I've got things that are to do with me. I've got today's tickets. I've got tickets approaching and breached SLA. As I say, this is just an example setup. You can break this down by ticket type or customer or geographical region that the customer's in, or whatever you like. Essentially, this is where you start your day from a service desk point of view. You come in here and you go, look, these are my queues of tickets. I've got 357 tickets that have come in. I better deal with those. And from here, you can work from here. You can expand these out. So each one of these tiles is a ticket. I can expand these out. It's got more information in here. I can click on the ticket link here and it'll take me to that individual ticket, which we'll do later. Or I can click on the column and it'll take me to the list view. And all of these columns have got this list view underneath it. And this is the list view that I customize. I change the fields that are in here, and that'll change what's displayed on those process boards. So you use the process boards to figure out what you need to do, and then you work through your lists from here. We're looking at a list of tickets here, but this is going to be the same across the whole system. So as I said before, not everything has to go through a ticket. It can do if you want it to. We can set it up that way. But in Harmony, you've got these different objects that are operating. So we've got quotes, we've got leads, we've got purchase orders, we've got customers, projects, tickets. Ticket is just one of many things in Harmony. And the way we display the information is basically the same, whether it's a ticket or not. So if we look at a couple of others, first of all, sales. So in here, same layout, same setups. These are filtered lists, but they're not tickets. These are leads that have come in. So a lead is an object in itself. It's got a workflow, so it's a bit like a ticket, but it behaves very, very differently. So we've got leads, we've got opportunities, and we've got orders. So from a sales point of view, rather than focusing on my service desk, if I want to look at sales today, or if I'm the salesperson for the business, I'm going to come in here and do the same thing. I'm going to say, right, what am I going to work on? I've got 7 uncontacted leads, so 7 new leads that have come in. I might work through those. Again, I can expand them out and get more information and then decide. Or at the other end of the sales process, I've got some orders that are awaiting signature. So here is a list of contracts that I've printed off and sent email to my customers, and I'm waiting for them to email me back. And in this list, I'm looking at an online order. So there's an online signature facility built into Harmony. So you build a quote, you click a button, send it to the customer, they click on a button to accept it, and that processes it through the system.
And James, can you just click and drag one of those into another?
No, that's not the way it works. So what's doing is this is displaying the information. So in here, if I clicked on one of these, like for example, if I clicked on this opportunity here, and I changed some of the information in there, like so I would work on this opportunity. I might change the stage that it's at, the workflow. Like I might say that's lost now, for example, and save it. That will move it automatically. So you still work from in the object. You use these process boards to see where you need to work, and then you update the ticket or the quote or whatever it is, and it will move along automatically. Okay. Good. So one more I'm going to show you before we move on. And I'm going to show you the invoicing one. As you can see, there's several others here for different parts of the system. It's a similar process across these. I like to show the invoicing one because this shows how the billing works at the other end, which is always important. So this process board is called invoicing. My invoices are here at the end. So these are my draft invoices waiting to go out. Again, I can click on the column and go to that list and work through them. I can expand them and see a bit more information. The way Harmony works is, and this will be very different if you've not got one system that does all these things at the moment. So in Harmony, you're not going to go into the invoice here at the end and start putting stuff onto it or editing things or changing things. You can do if you want to, or we advise if you need to, if a mistake's been made, for example, but that's not the way you create your invoices, because the invoices are going to be created automatically based on all the work that you're doing. So right from when we build a quote, we sell something to a customer, which we're going to do in a minute. That's got all the billing rules on it. So we might sell some time, for example. That might be on time and material, on a rate. So we wait for the time booking to be entered. Once the time booking is entered and approved, invoice is created for those hours that have been booked. If we sell a piece of hardware, we are going to wait for the hardware to be delivered, maybe. We're going to do the purchase order, maybe. And then eventually we're going to say, yes, that's ready for billing now, once those criteria have been met. So it's these columns here that actually control that. So there's some examples in here. So milestones for fixed price time, billable time, which is the example I was just talking about for things on rates, for time and materials. I've got expenses as well, which is all in the system. So expenses waiting to be billed back to one of my customers. And I've got some consumption schedules here. So this is quite an interesting one. So this is a way to bill for things like Office 365 licenses or gigabytes of storage that people are using from you. So in this example, and if we just click on this one, so this is a list of all the agreements that I have with people with all the rates in there. It's waiting for me to enter in the usage amount. So I can do that by just manually typing in the number by saying, yeah, they used 20 this month, for example, and just releasing that. I can use the previous month's quality and roll it over automatically. And I can do this all en masse as well if I want to. I can use the estimated quantity, which is a number that I put on the original quote to the customer. Or I can pull this information in from another source. So I can use the API, for example, to populate these numbers, or I can just upload a spreadsheet that I've downloaded from my tracking system that's counting how many gigabytes they've got on their server or whatever it may be. So several different ways of doing it. You can do some nice automation in there, but basically once we've entered in this number, however we do it, we're going to release it. And then, so if we just release one, just say, yeah, that one's released, that will then go through to billing. Okay. That'll then wait for the next month's usage to be put in there. You know, it'll stay in there perhaps, or it'll disappear depending on how we've got it set up. But what we're interested in is now invoicing that to the customer. So that amount at that rate will have gone onto an invoice line, which will show in these lists at the end now waiting to be billed to a customer. So it's these steps that control what go on the invoice, not you manually counting up how many hours have been worked or how many of these that they've used or whatever it may be. And as I say, it's a very different way of doing it than, you know, go and checking all your spreadsheets or check one system and see how many hours have been booked against this and then do this. It's all set up right from the quote that we build. Then it turns into a contract that's got all these rules on there. We do work against it. We book incidents or we book time or we raise expenses or, you know, we sell them some more stuff. This all flows through the system through these different routes. And it sounds quite complicated, but it's not, because it's all controlled right from the very beginning. So it actually makes it really organized. So when I'm doing my billing, yes, these are my draft invoices waiting to go out. I can just send all these out, email them all out to customers en masse once I'm happy. But basically, if there's anything in any of these columns, I know that there's something needs doing. So I know that I've got to enter in 191 figures on my consumption contracts. I know I've got 9 expenses that are awaiting approval before they go onto the invoice. I've got 8 time bookings. I've got 188 milestones. So typically you're kind of clearing these down and then you know that everything's done. So it means you don't miss anything. You don't forget to bill for some time for fixing something. Everything gets tracked, and once it's been entered into the system, it refers to the contract that it's associated with to figure out the rates and how much you're going to bill things and whether you're going to bill them for that and stuff like that. Okay, so that took a little bit longer than I expected, but not too much longer. So we're not doing too badly so far. So that shows quite nicely. Sorry, Steve, were you going to say something?
I was real quick. Do these boards, I know you said you cannot drag and drop them. Do these like update automatically? Like if somebody else is working in the PSA, is this page going to refresh as people move things around?
Exactly. And all the lists will as well. So you can either stick them on auto refresh, or it'll wait for you to click the button to move back to the page, or refresh it manually if you prefer. But yes, there might be 100 people doing all different things in the system, from quoting new contracts to updating tickets, putting in expenses, and then one person doing the billing. So it's quite important that it's all updated. Every time someone does something as well, if it's relevant, you're going to get notified. So what you end up with is a load of requests to release things, or approve things, or review things, or send things out, which is quite nice as well. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I want to do quotes and tickets. I think we'll look at a ticket first, and then we'll do a quote. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to my recent tab here. And these are all the things that I've looked at recently, which is quite a lot of stuff because I'm jumping around the system. So I've got some kind of pinned objects here, which is a nice, easy way to navigate through the system. You don't have to keep going through and finding everything every time through the menu option. You can just come in here and choose the things that you want to view. So first of all, a ticket. So we're just going to literally talk through a ticket. I'm sure all of you know what the concept of a ticket is. I just want to show you how Harmony does it, basically. So here's a ticket. This particular example came through via email. So Harmony reads your support mailbox and creates tickets automatically. The email parser is very powerful and certainly better than a lot of the other things that are on the market. So Harmony will read the email. It'll look for words or patterns in there that'll help give it a ticket type, an SLA, a workflow, route it to a certain person or a certain team. All of this is designed to be automated. So Harmony read my mailbox. This was an email that came in from a customer with a screenshot on there, which you can see is nice and clear. It's not converting things to text or saving images as attachments or anything like that. Nice and clear, so I can see straight away what's the problem. Right, it's this. The problem is nonsense, by the way, in case you're trying to figure it out. I just copied and pasted an image on there. But you can see nice and easily what's going on straight away. Now, some other things that go on here, across here, we've got all the things that sort of an update as the status as where things are up to. So the team that it's in, the person it's assigned to, the ticket type, which is quite important. In Harmony, you can have as many different ticket types as you like. Ticket types, each ticket type can have a different SLA, it can have a different workflow, it can have different routing rules. So the different ticket types can behave very differently. So as soon as the email comes in, you're categorizing it in what we call a ticket type. And that'll set off a chain of events, start the workflow, assign it to a person, apply an SLA, start that timer, etc., etc. The other thing here is the status. So the status is basically the workflow that is assigned to this ticket type. So in this one, it's awaiting customer response. If I respond to the customer from here, it'll automatically change this to the next stage, which will be customer. If the customer replies from here, it'll automatically add that attachment to the email as a comment, and it will change it to customer responded, or waiting for me to do something, or whatever the next stage in the workflow is. Sorry, that sounds quite vague. Let me explain. The workflows are these statuses, okay? And you can design these. There's a basic one that comes with it, which is basically this one here. Starts as a new, goes to assigned, waiting customer response, customer responded and resolved. And there's a couple of extra ones in here. You design these workflows and you can control the stages that it needs to go through, the order that it needs to go in. This is an open workflow, so you basically just choose any status on there, which is your standard workflow. So I just change it, and there's some automation for changing it based on people putting comments in there and stuff. But these can be like linear workflows. So it starts off as new, and then it can only go to assigned. So it makes sure that someone performs a certain function, which can be really useful. And because you can do that by ticket type, you can have your edge case of scenarios where one particular thing that happens needs to be done in a certain way. You can model that in the system, and it's really easy to model it as well. Okay, so other things on here, custom fields. You add your custom fields in and you map them to the ticket type. So you're only showing information that's relevant to that type of issue. The custom fields are really useful in Harmony. It's not just a bit of text. They can be dates or numbers. They can be drop-down boxes, multi-select lists like this one. They can be hyperlinks. They can be all kinds of stuff. So the custom fields are automatically integrated into all the list view or the grid view that we saw earlier when we looked at the list of tickets. These are all automatically integrated in there. They can be filtered on those fields. You can build notifications based on these fields and rules. So they're actually part of the system, and they're very flexible. They're not just a bit of text, as I say, that you can read if you happen to look at that ticket. You can also populate these fields by using the API, like this one here. This is CSAT, customer satisfaction. So when the ticket gets closed of a certain type, Harmony will send out an email and it'll say, how did we do? Smiley face, sad face, rating 1 to 5, whatever you like. And people will click on the link to give it a score, and it'll automatically populate a field in here, which is what's happened here. I got 4 out of 5 for this one. So, a smiley face. So I can report on that and see how well I'm doing on the different types of ticket and the different people that are responding, etc., etc. Here we've got the basics that was at the top. So just who it's assigned to and where it is in the workflow, etc. We can book time against these, which obviously is critical. So quick note on how this works. You can enter time in just by putting in a number. Like that, or you can start a timer. I've already got a timer running on this one, so let's just start it again. So I've got a timer running. Once I stop that, it'll make the time booking for me. So several people can book time against the same ticket. The ticket is not the controller for the time bookings. And what I mean by that is you don't have to close the ticket and resolve it for these time bookings to go through to billing. Okay. Once you create a time booking, each time booking is an individual thing in itself that goes through its own approval process, goes through to billing when appropriate based on the rules of the contract. The ticket can remain open forever, and these things can go through. Several people can have ownership and book time against it even when it's not their ticket. It's very, very flexible. So the way that works is there's a task here, and the task is linked to the contract, and the task is the thing that actually controls where this time booking goes. So it's not the ticket, it's the task. So I can have the task on here, and I can change the task if I want to. So I can book several things against the same ticket, but they're actually against different tasks. So some of them might be included in your all-you-can-eat support, whereas another task might be for stuff that's not covered under that. So that'll go through to bill the customer for that time booking, but all on the same ticket. So it's an extra dimension there. The ticket is not driving everything. The ticket is just where you are entering it from. It's the task, which is linked to the contract and all the billing rules that dictates that. And then we've got comments down here. Pretty straightforward. I'm sure you've seen this stuff before. Private comment will add a comment like these down here. Public comment will do the same, but it'll email the customer back as well and probably change the status in the workflow. So this is where we communicate with the customer. Then the customer responds to the email that they get, and that'll add their comment in here as well, and prompt you to now you've got to respond again. So as I say, pretty basic ticket stuff, but very flexible is the key message, and very easy to use. Very a nice user interface for a ticket as well. We feel anyway. The other thing I want to show on here, and this is quite important, this is all the things that this ticket is linked to here in our relationships tab. And this is the benefit of using a PSA over a standalone service desk tool, is that all the contractual information and everything is all stored in the same system. So when a ticket gets created, most of this stuff gets attached to it automatically. So if I want to go and look at the customer record from here, I can just click on the link, or I can read some of the information that's displayed even on the ticket page. Like here, I'm seeing some custom fields that are relevant to the customer. So every time I go into a ticket for that customer, I'm going to get this information. I don't have to go and dig it out from another system or from deeper in the system. So customer and contacts get applied to the ticket. SLA, obviously, we want that applying automatically. The SLA that gets chosen can be based on any of the following: ticket type, the customer that it's for, the specific contract that it's related to, the asset that is linked to it, and I think there's a couple more as well. So basically, you don't have to just apply the same SLA to all the different things you do. It can be based on the type of customer, the type of customer, the contract that they have, and these other things as well. The asset, obviously quite important. So here's the asset that was linked to this ticket. So the issue that was happening was on this server. We can just click on one of these. We'll use asset as the example, and we'll go and look at the asset record really fast, nice and quick. Here we've got the asset record. So basic information about the assets. You might have heard these as configuration items. These are basically the assets that we're storing in the system, the servers, the desktops, the switches, the whatever else you want to store in there. Again, we've got custom fields which are mapped out by asset type. In this case, it's a server, and we've got some contractual relationships and things down here as well. So we store things at the asset level as well. So we can go and look, for example, at all the tickets that relate to this asset. So I've come from the ticket that I was dealing with, clicked on the asset, clicked on the tickets tab, and I'm seeing some very different information in here, but all nice and quick and easy to click through and manage, which again is different from other systems. You also see that I'm getting a breadcrumb up here that goes along. So as I get deeper in the system, I can just backtrack to the page that I was on very easily. In this case, I started on the ticket, so that's the only one on there. But as you get deeper into the system and click through these things, you can easily find your way back. A couple of other things on here before we move on. Checklists, really cool. So these are dynamic checklists that get applied to the ticket. So this is just a list of activities that need to be done. As you see, these ones have been marked off as they've been clicked on, and they're date and time stamped, and says the person that did it. These checklists get applied based on a couple of criteria. So based on the ticket type. So if you've got a ticket type of server fix, for example, it'll automatically apply the checklist that you need to go through to fix a server. Okay, but more dynamic than that, it can be based on the status in the workflow that it's on. So once it gets to a certain stage in here, like for example, if it gets to needs Oracle input, then a new checklist can appear on here, or new steps in a checklist can be continued on here that that we need to follow now that we're going to get Oracle involved. So you can keep it simple and just have checklists. The same checklist appears on each ticket. You can manually just add a checklist just by doing that. And a lot of new actions appear in here, or it can be based on things like the ticket type and the status in the workflow, which is really, really useful because it means you're not cluttering it up with things that don't need doing. So when it does appear, you know that it needs to be checked off. You can also link knowledge base articles to steps in here, like this one's got a knowledge base article on here. I can just click on the symbol there. It takes me to that knowledge base article about how to fix that server, or in this case, upgrade help. Last couple down here, these are actions that are assigned on the back of this ticket. So these are things for me to do. So right back at the beginning, we saw my calendar with those scheduled events on there. That's the kind of thing that would show it by putting an action on there. I can assign an action on here to other people, not necessarily myself. I can do recurring actions on here if I want to go and do something every second Wednesday. I have to go out and check this, for example. I can just do this in here nice and easily, and that'll notify the relevant people and go in their calendar. So in Harmony, we do have the concept of recurring tickets. If you want to do recurring tickets for recurring, checks or events that you need to do. But what you can also do, which I actually think works better in many cases, is you have one ticket with a recurring action on there. So you can go into your calendar that every Wednesday at 10 o'clock, you have to go to that person and look at their server or whatever it may be. But you don't necessarily have 100 tickets being created automatically that you need to deal with. So they're not clogging up the system in advance. So a couple of different ways of achieving the same thing. And lastly, I want to show you the followers. So this is really nice. So I can, as well as the person that owns this ticket, which in this case is me, other people can be following it. And what that means is if there's an update on there, they will get notified. So me as the owner, yes, but also Gianluca, who might be the support manager that automatically follows the ticket. It might be someone, Gianluca might have put a comment on there at some point helping out, and he automatically follows the ticket. And those automation rules are configurable by you. So what it means is, if I then go and change the status or add in a comment, even if it's a private comment, Gianluca might get notified of that, which is really useful. And again, really easy to use and set up so it automatically happens. Okay, so that's a quick run through of tickets. Steve, are there any questions on tickets that we can answer at this point before we move on to the next section?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, very good. So we're going to move on to the next section now, which we're going to look at. This is this kind of sales function, but we're going to look at quotes. And this is important because this shows a lot of how Harmony works. So, and then we're going to finish off, if we've got time, with projects. So what we're going to do is we're just going to create a new quote and just talk through it. I'm going to go through it quite quickly and talk quite a bit about it rather than taking too long on this. So I've just gone to quick create, which is a really nice function in the system as well to quickly create things. I'm going to choose a customer that I'm going to sell to. Now, before I do this, in fact, I'll choose someone in a different jurisdiction. So Harmony is a fully multi-currency system, and it's a multi-jurisdictional multi-currency system, which to probably everyone on this call means absolutely nothing and is worthless. But my company here, my demo company, is based in UK and based in pounds sterling, but I am going to sell this in dollars. So you're going to see it in dollars and pounds, basically, as we go through the system. For you, if it's all in dollars, it's just all going to be in dollars. You don't need to worry about it. But if you do have the requirement to buy or sell anything in another currency, or deal with a customer in another currency, put expenses in another currency, that is all built into the system. So what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to fill out any of the custom fields, but you might want to capture some useful information in here. I'm just going to choose the customer that I'm going to sell to, and then I'm going to choose the contact of the customer that I want to send this quote to. I'm going to save it, and now I've got a blank quote. So the way Harmony works is we are going to predefine our product list in the system. And what will happen then is when I add something to this quote by clicking on this button, it'll bring up all my what we call product families, and that's what these are here. So each one of these product families has a list of product items in there. The product families is a reporting level, so it's quite useful to break these things down into different product families. But equally, you might just have one product family with a load of product items in there, and you can actually see them in the list view. Just these are a list of all the products that I sell. There are too many to show on one page. This is a nice way of seeing it. And what's happened here is this is a slimmed down version of my product list because I chose a customer in the USA. These are the products that I sell to the USA. Now, as I say, the multi-currency stuff might not interest you very much, but it's more than just the multi-currency. So the jurisdictions might be states that you sell into, and you might sell things at different prices to different states. You might have different tax rules that apply if you sell from one state or location to another. All of that can be modeled in the jurisdictions. So basically, I choose the customer as a jurisdiction. That's now told Harmony what currency to use, what the tax rates are, what price list to pick up on, all these things. So let's sell this customer a couple of things. So let's sell some hardware first of all. So let's keep it simple. We'll just do one piece of hardware, and we'll do a Dell laptop. Okay, there's a price in there of $800. When you're using the system, you might have hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of products in here, all with the prices if you want to. But equally, you might just keep this quite simple. So you might have a product called laptop, for example, and then each time you do a quote, you just add in the extra information about it, maybe even set the price. So you don't need to put all the prices in there in advance and maintain them all if it's not really if it's a bit pointless to do that or too time consuming to do that. You don't need to do that, but you do want one product in there that's set that for each different type of thing that you sell, because this has got all the rules of how we're going to bill for this later on and what the terms are. If it's a recurring type contract like a license, all the cancellation terms and billing frequencies and all stuff like that, they're built into the product, which is what I've picked up here. So a piece of hardware is a nice and simple thing. I'm gonna sell it to you, and you're gonna pay me. Okay. All I have to do in here is set the quantity. In this case, we'll say 1. Down here, we've got the supplier information. So I've got this set up. So every time I sell one of these to a customer, I'm going to use this supplier or vendor here, and it's going to be this price. Obviously, you're probably going to change this price at this point, because you're probably going to negotiate with that vendor and ask them what price you can get that at, and you can just edit it in here nice and easily. Or if you don't have that ticked, you can just tick it and add that in manually each time. You can also change the vendor that you're going to use nice and easily. So the product has got all the billing information. It's also potentially got the purchasing information, which is what we're seeing down there. So let's add that to the quote. So really, I know that took me 2 minutes, but that was only because I was explaining it. That can only take a few seconds, and I've done the price, I've done the billing rules, I've done the purchase order's been created on the back of that. Really, really good automation. All I did was choose from a list and then put in the quantity and maybe adjust the price if applicable. Now I've got a price, I've got a markup or a margin on there if I prefer. I've now got my first line on my quote. Okay. I've also got a purchase order that's been created based on that other information that we put in. So let's sell a couple more things on here before we process this through. So we can sell these things in bundles as well if it's easier. So if you're selling lots of the same thing to, the groups of the same things to people, you design these in bundles. So you've got your product items as a list, and then you bundle them together into different packages that you want to kind of sell, just to make it easier to put it onto the quote for you. You can also, there's another way of building a quote, which is what we call off-price list item. So for the second thing we're going to put on here, in fact, we'll do one more thing, and then we'll use that one. So I can just keep picking from my list. I'm going to sell some time here to install this and set up this Dell laptop as well. So in here, this is my professional services stuff. So this is my time sold in different ways, per day, per hour, level of seniority that's going to do the work at different rates, whether it's time and materials or fixed price. All of that gets modeled in here. So you just pick from the list. So we'll keep it simple, and we'll do some fixed price time. So some fixed price consultancy time, it's $200 an hour. Nice, I'm happy with that. All I've got to say is the quantity again. So let's say it'll take us 5 hours to do that. We're not going to do the vendor stuff down here because we're going to deliver this ourselves. But if we're going to outsource this, we might still want to add that in. So now I've got 2 lines on my quote. Okay, nice and straightforward still. I'm now going to add a third line to this, and I'm going to do this one manually. So you wouldn't do this every time, and you might not even give people access to be able to do this if you don't want. The reason I say that is that you can control these products. So you control the products and the prices and the billing rules, and then anyone can go in and build a quote because they're just picking from your controlled list. If they then change the price, it might come through to you to authorize. So you've got control of this, and that's quite nice and useful for you because you can control this and then let people do quotes. You don't have to worry about doing the quote yourself every time. However, if you want to, or if you want to give other people access to, you can let people just make it up. And we're going to do the third item that way because this shows how you build the products as well. So I'm going to give this thing a name. Let's say Office 365 licenses. Now, there are several different ways of selling Office 365 licenses, so we're just going to choose one way rather than showing all the different options. When we go into kind of one-to-one demos with people, we spend quite a bit of time in here figuring out how you want to design these products so you can see your billing rules in action. But obviously, we're just going to use a couple of examples for today. So in here, we've got our different revenue models, and this shows that the flexibility of Harmony. Basically, you choose your revenue model. So if I choose professional services, for example, it's all about time and how I'm going to sell that time. If I choose software license, it's going to give me a load more options. So I'm going to choose a minimum term. Then I've got to put in contract length and cancellation rules and all stuff like that. So basically, you just go from top to bottom populating this. So we're going to do volume based for this on a minimum term. So we're going to say, this is variable. The number of licenses that this person have is variable, and we're going to put it in each month based on how many licenses they've got. So all we really want to do in here is put in a rate for the price, and then we're going to put in the usage based on those consumption schedules that we saw earlier. So in here, I'm really worried about, is there a contract length? Is there a minimum term? Yes, let's do 1 year. How often am I going to bill? What's the billing frequency? I can change this if I want to, but we'll just keep it at 1 month. For this one, probably the most important one is, do we generate the billing at the end of the cycle or the start? So we'll do it at the start. So at the start of the month, we're going to say, how many licenses have we got? Then we're going to bill you for that. So that's quite a complicated example. But as you saw, it was quite simple to set up. So once you get the hang of this, and we go through this as one of the first things on the implementation, this flexibility is really powerful for you, because it means you can just go and build new products and new ways of selling things. You don't have to use the way that the system wants to bill things. You don't have to use that for your way of operating. You tell us how you want to bill for stuff, and we'll build it in here with you and show you how it works, and then you'll be able to do it yourself after the first couple. So pretty simple now. I'm back to the page I was on before, as if I chose it from my list, but I've just manually created one. Another thing you might do in here is add in extra contract terms. Like I might put stuff in here. Can't cancel, for example. And this is important because all these terms, the system generated ones, the ones that I've set against the products in my product list, and the ones I add in here manually, these are going to show on the quote, and the quote is going to basically be a contract that they're going to sign. So this can be really useful and important. So all I really need to do in here is set in some pricing. It might be banded pricing. So I might say up to 20 licenses, it's $20 per month. And then if they go above 20, I'm going to charge them $15 a month, for example. We can use fill up or look up pricing. So I can do the first 20 at this price and then the next one's at this, or I can look at the quantity and choose which band it is in and do the pricing from there. So nice and flexible billing models again. Okay, let's add that to the quote, and we're pretty much good to go now. So we've got 3 different items that we're selling, one of which we're purchasing from a vendor, one of which is our own services, and the other one is licenses. We've not done the purchasing for the licenses, but we're just skipping that out just in the interest of time. So 3 very different things that I'm selling. I'm going to put them all onto one quote, as you can see, and then I might break them up into different agreements to help me manage them. And then I might put them all back together again for the invoice. So one quote, one invoice, but maybe 2 or 3 separate agreements to make it easier for me to manage. So automated stuff, we might just put on a schedule, and a schedule is just going to create invoices. So if I wanted to say, yeah, you've got 20 licenses and you're committing to that for 12 months, I just need to invoice you every month, then you just put that on a schedule. Keep that separate from the rest of it because it's just going to do it all automatically. Whereas things like time, like here, I'm going to want to put this onto a project and I want to manage that project. I've only sold them 5 hours, so it might not be worth it, but that's what we're going to do. So just to finish off the process, next steps. And as I said before, you can kind of skip some of these steps out, or most of these steps if you like. So if you're thinking this is overkill, don't worry. I'm showing you the long way. So first of all, get approval. So this is internal approval. I'll get approval from myself. It's putting this on there because we made up a product off price list. So I could have put anything I wanted in there. So I need approval before I send this to the customer. Now I've got approval. I've got a couple of options. I can print this off as a PDF. If I click on view here, it'll show me what the PDF looks like. So this is unformatted. Obviously, you have your branding in here, your logo, your colors. The kind of structure of the quote is not completely locked in, but it's a bit more difficult to change it. But the colors, the columns that we're showing here, whether we showed the taxes on the quote, the additional terms, and the footer here, which is showing maybe additional rules and terms and conditions, or like I've got here, a download to my full terms and conditions. All of that is customizable and configurable. And it'll change based on the products that we've chosen as well. So this gets automatically populated based on stuff that we put elsewhere in the system in the product list. So I can print that off as a PDF, email it to the customer. If I was going to do that, I'd do it through the system. I literally just click on the email symbol here. If I then choose which contact I want to send it to, which is the customer that I'm dealing with on this quote, if I click on write email, it'll just open up Google or Outlook and I just send a normal email. But what it'll do is it'll copy it back to Harmony. So when I come into this quote, or if someone else comes into this quote, they can look in the activity here and it'll show all the posts that people have put against this, but it'll also show all the emails in the same way. So I can just go through the history here of the communication with the customer. So that's option one. Option two is to use the facility that's built into Harmony. So if I click on go here, it'll email Robert, it'll have a link on there, he'll open up the link, he'll view the quote, and he can accept it online all through the system. Okay, so we're not going to do that right now because we've not got Robert's email for a start. We might have a look at what that looks like later. But basically, you're either sending this quote out to people and negotiating, and then once you're happy with it, you're going to turn it into an order, or we're just going to quickly process it. So depending on what your communication process is like here, quote, you can still negotiate, change the terms on here, change the quantities and discounts and things like that maybe. Once you're happy with it, you turn it into an order. And the order, it's got the same online signature facility built in. We print it off again the same, but we've basically locked it down now. So we're not making changes to it. It's a formal sales order here waiting to be processed. Now, as I say, you can skip these steps out. You can miss out the order step altogether, for example. You can get people to just sign off the quote, for example, if that's what you're used to. But having those two steps is quite useful in some cases. But a quote and an order are basically the same thing in a different step in the workflow. So just to finish off, I'm just going to say this contract has been signed. I'm going to put in a reference number or a PO number for the customer because I'm doing it manually. But once I've done that, the contract's signed, everything's agreed with the customer. It's basically waiting for me to process. We're just going to look at that screen because it shows you how it moves through the system. So very quickly, this is processing an order. So I'm going to set some things in here, like who's going to deliver this project, when do I expect to start billing for these different line items. So I've still got a line item for each item. They're basically grouped into two categories here. So I've got purchases, and I've got the rates. I could put all these onto one contract if I wanted to, but I'm not going to because I want to manage these differently. I want the time and the laptop on a project because I want to manage that project. So I can add it to an existing project or create a new one. Really easy. I can literally just click on create and I've got a new project. So those two order lines are going to go on my new project. For the rates, I want that on a contract. And in fact, I need to put that on a contract because it's a rate contract. So I'll create a new contract for that one. I'll just change the name slightly so I can see the difference between them. So in here, again, ignore all the tax rules. This for you will be sales tax, but it's same principle. So this gets applied automatically based on the customer that I'm selling it to, the products that I've chosen as well. So some things will be tax exempt, like in my example here, the Dell laptop is tax exempt, but the services are chargeable at 20% VAT. VAT, in case you don't know, is basically our equivalent of sales tax. It works a bit differently, but in Harmony, you turn it on at the start and you say, is it sales tax or is it VAT? And it essentially behaves the same, but there's different consequences later on because we pay a high percentage of tax, which is the VAT at 20%, but we can claim it back as well later. So you may be changing these things in here, but typically not. We set it up so that this happens automatically. But if you want to change it, I could just, for example, say, right, that is actually, it's gone to Dallas, so it's 10% tax. Okay. And that's the end of the process completely. I've now got my contract set up. They're waiting to be billed based on the rules that I've put on that quote and the terms that I've put on that quote. I've got a project set up here. So this is a quick look at a project, and we'll come back to this if we've got time. We'll decide in a minute. But this is a project for the total value. I've got some tasks set up on the project to go and do that consultancy work for the 5 hours. The budget has come through automatically. I can do work against this now and track this and track percentage complete and budget spent and milestones. And as I say, if we decide we've got time, we'll go through the project process. But the key thing is the sales process is done now. The quote's been done, and it's now turned into nice and clearly. It's moved through the process, and we've got a project to manage in this example.
That's really cool, James. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
So we do have a question here. Shiva asked, "What are the minimums for buying in?" I know he popped in after we went over pricing. He was told a year ago he was not large or mature enough to use Harmony PSA.
Okay. I hope he wasn't put as bluntly as that. But essentially, there is a minimum order. Steve mentioned at this beginning. A year ago, you might have been told that you need 10 users. Well, you don't need 10 users. You just need to pay for 10 users. We've recently reduced that to 5 users. So basically, you're going to pay for 5 users, even if you've only got 3. So having 3 or 4 users is totally fine, but you're going to pay for 5 users. And the 5 users, Steve said the number before,
385.
Thank you, Steve. $385 per month.
Shiva said that it was put that bluntly to him. Shiva, how many users did you have at the time? Because I know, so Shiva had, okay, so he said 7 to 8 users at that time is how many he had. Now at that time, if I remember Shiva's story correctly, he had probably just started doing managed services. Mm-hmm. So maybe he had implied that he was just getting started, but he had already been doing break fix and more like project-based type work.
Okay.
Where, for, I don't know, a decade. He says he was doing it as VAR.
Okay.
So
interesting. So just to give you all a bit of background, Steve went through this at the beginning. We're a small, growing company now. It's a really exciting place to work. We're bringing on new customers all the time. We're actually more busy than we can actually handle. So I apologize if someone got a blunt response on one of the lead responses. That's my responsibility to manage that. So I will look into that example. But basically, we try to be honest with people. If we think that what they tell us it's not going to work, we say that, because we just don't want to waste people's time. We don't want to try and hard sell it to you and get you to pay more than what you need to. We like to give people the facts and then let them decide. So the 5 user price, unfortunately, that is the minimum order that we go. Once you've, if you're happy with that price, we're happy to engage with you. There's no kind of, you're too small for this. It's just that minimum order, which we do to protect ourselves because we just don't have the resources to implement, really small systems. I know that's a good idea to do for the future, but we can't do it quite yet at the moment. 5 users is a minimum order, and we'd be happy to discuss it again. Start again, wipe the slate clean and go through the process.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that response. We have kind of reached our time limit here, guys. So I do know that you have a special offer for members of MSP webinars. Could you briefly explain how that offer works?
Steve, do you want to do that, please?
Yeah. Any of the members of MSP webinars who want to inquire, if that inquiry ends up in an annual order, we'll discount the first quarter's fees by 50%. So if you inquire after this session, mention MSP webinars in the inquiry, and we'll make sure we mark that account so that if you do subsequently buy it, you'll get a 50% discount on the first quarter fees.
And is that a year paid up front or just a year contract?
No, on our annual terms, we bill quarterly in advance. So basically the first quarter you get a 50% discount on.
Okay. And then do you do anything where it's billed monthly?
We do a monthly deal. It's slightly more expensive because obviously you've got monthly flexibility and you've not made the same sort of physical commitment to the software. So
Sure.
we charge more for monthly terms. But with monthly terms, you can change the number of users each month. You can expand and contract and things like that. But
Excellent.
it's about I think it's about 20% dearer to do it monthly.
Well, excellent. Do you have any integrations with RMM tools?
Absolutely. I'll sorry, Steve. I'll take over.
No, you go for it.
Yeah. So we've got several already up and running, with another one virtually finished and being tested. So the main ones we operate with at the moment are SolarWinds and SolarWinds. So what used to be Enable and Central, and also the GFI Max Focus one, which both now branded as SolarWinds from what I can tell, and also Ninja RMM. So that was the third one that we did. So those are our 3 live integrations at the moment. And we are just about to finish one with Continuum, which is slightly different, but it's still within that category. Now,
so are you guys avoiding the ones that are owned by competition?
Not actively, but essentially yes, because the opportunity there is small. I know there's an opportunity there to take people away if they're going to, if they've already got one of those systems, but the likelihood is they're also using their PSA, and if they're going to stick with one, they'll probably stick with both. So
I think you'd be surprised at the percentage of RMM users that are not using PSA that's made by the same company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's one point I'd like to make about the Continuum one we're really excited about, because the Continuum model is different. It's not an event triggering a ticket in the PSA. It's a ticket triggering a ticket in the PSA, because Continuum build the ticket from the event themselves. The way we're doing it, it will deliver a generic ticket-to-ticket API. So we have to do that for Continuum, but we're doing it in a generic manner. What that means is you could raise a ticket in Harmony, which would raise a ticket in Cisco, and the ticket in Cisco would know about the ticket in Harmony and vice versa. So it allows you to have ticket systems talking to each other in a very generic API manner. It's really exciting. We don't think anybody is doing that.
And accounting software. So someone near the beginning said, so this essentially can be our accounting solution, but you're not trying to take that approach.
No, we're not a ledger of record. You still need a ledger. You can use it. We have bidirectional API integration with Xero and QuickBooks Online. You can raise your invoices in Harmony and have them paid in QuickBooks. QuickBooks will then pay it off in Harmony, so they're bidirectional sync. We can also use it with a file interface with almost any system on the planet, but it's not a ledger of record.
So no QuickBooks for desktop?
You can use what is it?
Z-Axis.
Z-Axis, that's the one. Yeah, you can use Z-Axis to integrate it with QuickBooks Desktop, because they have the mapping tool. So you have to buy Z-Axis. We can integrate with Z-Axis.
Which is no different than getting something like WiseSync to integrate one of the competitors to your QuickBooks. So that seems reasonable. All right. If anyone here has any other questions about integrations, pricing, or additional features and functionality, please don't hesitate to head over to harmonypsa.com and reach out to someone in sales, and they will gladly take care of you. Steve, James, I really appreciate you guys coming here and showing off your product today.
You're welcome.
So if there's anything else that I can do for you two, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks for the opportunity, Steve. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I believe we've answered everyone's questions. So thanks so much, everyone. And I do hope you all have a great day. I will see you at the next webinar.
Okay.